Good afternoon. I am Mary Ann Wood with Missouri State University Office of Public Affairs, one of the nonpartisan organizations that make up the Informed Voter Coalition. Today we are interviewing candidates for Springfield City Council Zone 4. They are Bruce Adebyadze, Zone 4, Matt Simpson, Zone 4. Each candidate will be interviewed individually and asked the same questions. They will have 1 minute to introduce themselves and 2 minutes to respond to each question. Our first candidate is Bruce Adebyadze. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's begin by having you introduce yourself and tell us why you decided to run for this office. You have 1 minute.
Hi, my name is Bruce Adebyadze, and I'm running for Zone 4, City Council position. I ran 2 years ago for a general seat and got really close. And I feel like we're at a pivotal moment in our city's history of growth patterns and a trajectory, especially with our new comprehensive plan and zoning code. And I feel like my experience has led me to being one of the candidates that needs to be on city council. I've served on several boards here in town, including Spring Bike Bicycle Club, Ozark Greenways, downtown's CID, as well as founding the Southwest Missouri chapter of the Urban Land Institute recently. And I feel like I've trained my entire career to be sitting here today applying for this position.
If elected, how would you engage in and learn about community-wide concerns that might be outside your own interests? You have 2 minutes to answer.
So that's a really good question, because we just had a forum last Saturday where I felt like the 1 minute answers that we were asked to give really needed 30-minute conversations. Policy related items are the things I really want to learn more about and listen to some of the constituents and nonprofits relating to things like homelessness here in Springfield, things like LGBTQ inclusions, things like DEI. I know enough probably to be dangerous on a lot of those items, but I'd really like to dive in and learn more about how we're dealing with those as a community, and how City Council can be part of that solution, or how we can help provide resources or delegate those responsibilities to the right individuals and organizations.
Several controversial zoning issues have emerged over the past few years, including the proposed Sunshine and National development and the coffee drive-through at Sunshine and Jefferson. What are your thoughts on developing a comprehensive corridor plan for the city? You have 2 minutes.
So those controversial projects are either in the bounds or adjacent to my own neighborhood, so I have very personal feelings about them. However, as a potential city council person, I have to set some of those feelings aside and just look at the facts and the situations. Backing up a little bit and taking a bigger, broader picture, I feel like those situations potentially could have been, the controversial nature of those situations could have been avoided. There were a couple other projects in similar nature scenarios that I feel like if, in fact, somebody from the city or a city council member was able to sit down with the neighborhood or neighborhood associations or neighbors, as well as the development team, and help have a productive conversation, that might have been really helpful. Absent that, I feel like one of the things I want to accomplish in my term would be for each neighborhood, not just the residential neighborhoods, but also commercial districts, to develop their own long-range strategies. I feel like the city has a beautiful long-range plan in Forward SGF, and I think that each area of town, whether it's a neighborhood or a commercial district, ought to have a similar plan, a long-range plan. And to your point, the corridors of National and Sunshine are a specific part of our community that need their own study and long-range plans.
60% of Springfield residents are renters, and finding affordable housing continues to be an issue for many. What ideas would you bring to the table to ensure every Springfieldian has a safe and affordable place to live? You have 2 minutes to answer.
So a couple of things about the 60% statistic is that I believe it 100%. I also have read through our housing study that was performed a year or so ago and understand some of the challenges we face, not only for affordable housing at the lower income levels, but also affordable housing at the upper income levels. There's just not enough stock in Springfield for the demand that we have, and that's not going to change. So we really have to follow the data and determine where we really need to focus that effort. I also feel like we have an opportunity in our city to think a little more strategically about how we grow commercially, how we grow within our boundaries, how we grow residentially, and even within neighborhoods. I think there's some opportunity for neighborhoods to step up and say, we have some either vacant pieces of land or some underutilized properties that could be additional forms of housing. I also think that our arterial corridors will offer the opportunity to do more mixed-use projects like the Forward SGF long-range plan, as well as the new zoning code says we could be doing. But I really think we've got to step back and take a look at our entire city and understand how we get to what you call affordable housing. And I think one of the components that's missing in Springfield is the ability for us to compete strongly at the state level for state tax credit-driven affordable housing dollars. We have shied away from it. We've treated it agnostically as a city, and I feel like we need to step up and advocate for it.
What stands out as one of the most urgent red flags from the Community Focus Report that needs to be addressed? You have 2 minutes for your answer.
Wow, one of the red flags, huh? So there are many of them. We've already talked about a couple of them in this conversation. I think back to a work session I attended 2 years ago about this same time, where an organization called Better Block of Springfield put together a workshop for college students and young professionals. They were given the red flag issues in Springfield to solve. There were 7 teams, and those 7 teams had 8 hours to prepare ideas on how to solve them. What I took away from that was that 4 of the 7 teams selected transit as the opportunity to solve, or the problem to solve. And that gave me a big clue as to what young people living in our city, and maybe young people that might want to move to our city, are seeing as important. And to solve transit, it's not a matter of just changing the bus routes or changing how we do transit. It's a matter of there's 2 components that it's going to take. One is we have to create the demand for transit. The demand for transit along corridors, along sections of our roads that could utilize that form of transportation, but also multimodal transportation with bicycles and pedestrians, making it all available and accessible to anybody. The other part of that is we have to get to a point where people don't see the bus or transit as just for poor people. I think if we can solve those 2 things, and those is going to take some time, I think that's one of the more important things to solve because it helps attract and retain young people here in Springfield.
If Springfield received a $10 million grant to use in any way that the council wanted, what would you do with it and why?
$10 million. Well, $10 million sounds like a lot of money, but I don't know how far it would go solving any one particular problem. I'd have to think about how the priorities are, look at our budget, see where it could be bolstered, look at what the issues are, probably talk to some of the constituents in Springfield, some of the leaders, some of the nonprofits, and understand where it could be best leveraged. That's one of the things I think I would look for is ways to leverage that kind of money, not just spend it. And I really think probably looking at potentially looking at homeless scenarios to solve some of the issues that we're dealing with, but not to just do handouts. I'd like to see some hand-ups. And I think that would go a long way. And then finding ways to help our police officers and our police department recruit and retain more officers so that we can have a fully staffed deployment.
Well, Bruce, that concludes our interview. Thank you very much for taking time to talk with us. Again, I've been speaking with Bruce Adebyadze, who is candidate for Springfield City Council Zone 4.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to candidates running for Springfield City Council Zone 4. Joining me now is Matt Simpson. Thank you very much for joining us. Would you please introduce yourself and tell us why you decided to run for this position? You have 1 moment.
Thank you for having me. I have been serving on City Council since I was appointed in 2018, and then I went through re-elections in April 2019 and 2021. During my time on council, I've been able to take on additional roles, including serving as mayor pro tem, serving as the chair of our ARPA review committee to allocate our ARPA funds that we received from the federal government, chairing the Finance Administration Committee, as well as serving as a liaison to groups like the Citizens Commission on Community Investment that led to the successful tax approved by voters in November, and serving as the liaison to the Police Fire Pension Board. I think that my track record on those issues and the opportunity to see through that tax issue and keep our promise to voters and continue to make a difference for the community that I live in and love and want my kids to grow up to love as much as I do is what drove me to run for re-election again.
If elected, how will you engage in and learn about community-wide concerns that might be outside of your own interests? You have 2 minutes to answer.
I think it's important for us as council members to always be able to listen, to always be seeking out different perspectives, as well as seeking out information about the issues that we're dealing with. On council, we deal with such a wide breadth of issues that it's not possible for any one person, to be the expert on every issue that's coming in front of us. You see that at our biweekly meetings where we've got several dozen bills on a variety of topics. And if we are not seeking out community feedback and listening to the community feedback that we receive, whether that's through emails, whether that's through phone calls, letters, but also us proactively going out and making sure that we are attending events, we are seeking out guidance from people who are experts in the subjects when we have bills or issues in front of us, and that we're doing the research to prepare ourselves so we have at least a good enough understanding of the issue to be able to benefit from those conversations we're having with the people who are experts in them. So I think that is our responsibility as members of council is, we are there to do the work on all these issues that it would not be possible for or reasonable to expect everybody to do on every issue that comes in front of us. And a big part of that is making sure that we are listening to everyone. Now, I think it's important there that, as we're listening to everyone, a lot of times on issues, particularly ones that are divisive, you will have people who have expertise who will be recommending different things. And when you've got people on different sides of the issue, you're never going to be able to do what everybody wants because what people want are different things. But what we can do is make sure that everybody who we're talking to is heard. We understand what feedback they have that's coming to the table. We use that in our decision making. And then when we make a decision, we're very clear in communicating why we made that decision, what the factual basis was for it, and how it fits with our goals for the community.
Several controversial zoning issues have emerged over the past few years, including the proposed Sunshine and National Development and the coffee drive-through at Sunshine and Jefferson. What are your thoughts on developing a comprehensive corridor plan for the city? You have 2 minutes.
I think that's something that we have the foundation for in our Forward SGF comprehensive plan, which really is the guiding document for land use decisions and other decisions that we're making for our city. And part of that calls for working on specific corridors. We have, through our ARPA funds that we received from the federal government that I chaired the committee looking at the allocations for. We have allocated funding to the planning department to conduct a corridor study along Sunshine. And there are other corridor studies and neighborhood studies that were called for by the Forward SGF plan that are also in process. I think it's really important when you're thinking about land use decisions to make sure that we have clear guidance, that we have clear plans at every level of the decision-making process to follow, because I think it's necessary to have those to make good decisions. I think it's also something that then helps address some of the controversy that sometimes can arise with these, because these are emotional decisions for people on both sides, and people are understandably passionate about their positions on them, and they should be. But I think we also have to think as a city that the decisions we're making on land use ultimately affect not just the present, but the future of our city. You can't address our housing challenges without being able to meet the need for housing that we're currently well short of. We can't address the need for people to have good jobs to move out of poverty unless you have those job opportunities available, which requires us to be able to grow and attract those jobs. So we have to keep those goals in mind. We have to have good plans, and we have to make decisions based on those plans in a way that provides fair certainty that this is what we're looking for, and these are the sorts of things we're going to approve. And everybody, whether it's neighbors or people looking to develop, kind of knows the standards that we're making those decisions based on.
60% of Springfield residents are renters, and finding affordable housing continues to be an issue for many. What ideas would you bring to the table to ensure every Springfieldian has a safe and affordable place to live? You have 2 minutes to answer.
So housing has been a passion of mine. It's one of the issues that I think that we need to address if we're going to succeed as a community, because unless you have a good place to live, whether you're a homeowner looking to be a homeowner or whether you're a renter, this community isn't going to work out as the place kind of for you to live. So it's an essential part of what we need to do as a city council. During my time on council, again, we're kind of referring back to the work with ARPA. We've made record investments in affordable housing projects, both to encourage home ownership. We've invested in organizations like the Springfield Community Land Trust, as well as pilot funding for Restore SGF that provides down payment assistance for individuals looking to purchase their first homes, as well as providing support for renters and also those who are in need of transitional housing options as they move towards permanent housing. We've made investments in organizations like the Kitchen, the Salvation Army, CPO with a purpose-driven day shelter to significantly expand the capacity in those areas. And those are all important steps. I think the other important step, though, that we need to continue to work on is actually making sure we have the stock of quality housing at every price point and at every type that people need to meet the demand. Right now, we also funded a housing study out of ARPA. We had not had a housing study done in Springfield in a few decades, and it showed that we are several thousand units short of what demand is. And basic economics, if supply is vastly exceeded by demand, prices are going to continue to go up, and we see that, and it's putting home ownership or quality rentals out of reach for many individuals and many families. We cannot change that unless we change the supply-demand imbalance, and we have to do that by making sure that we are looking for options to build missing middle housing, mixed-use housing, creative approaches to closing that gap.
What stands out as one of the most urgent red flags from the Community Focus Report that needs to be addressed? You have 2 minutes.
Well, the first one I would note is housing that we've just talked about, because I think that is essential to many of the problems that we're dealing with. But as we've already talked about that, I think that another red flag that stands out to me is the continuing poverty levels. We have been able to reduce poverty in the city of Springfield over the past several years. It's gone down from about 25% to about 20%. That's a significant reduction. It does make a big difference for the thousands of people in that category who were able to move out of poverty, but we still have a long way to go. And as you look at other problems that we are addressing in our community, whether that's housing, substance abuse, mental health challenges, public safety challenges, if we're going to take an upstream solution, that I think we need to address the causes of those problems and not just the symptoms that we're seeing, that we cannot be successful unless we have an upstream solution that addresses poverty. So that requires, I think, a holistic approach for us as a community to address to address. It does require making sure that we are partnering with community organizations to provide support for people who are facing challenges in those areas, whether it's substance abuse or mental health or being able to access housing. We also need to make sure that we are prioritizing our work in terms of driving economic growth to attract good jobs that pay well for individuals and make sure that they can provide a quality of life standard for them and their families. That's something that I see a lot in my professional job as well. I work at Ozarks Tech, and seeing people go through those trades programs and going into a good job with benefits has a hugely transformative effect on not only them, but their family and their future generations.
If Springfield received a $10 million grant to use in any way that the council wanted, what would you do with it and why? You have 2 minutes.
So my thought process, because we did receive something similar in terms of the roughly $42 million we received in the federal allocation with ARPA, I think you have to start when you're making that decision by first looking at one-time uses that are going to be the most impactful, because if you any type of one-time funding, whether it's grants or other appropriations, if you fund ongoing expenses with that, you're setting yourself up for failure because you don't have the revenue in the future to maintain those. The approach we took with ARPA is gathering broad community input. So we conducted surveys to see what the public priorities were for spending that one-time money. We worked with community organizations and community partners because with partnerships, there are things that housing, for example, those organizations that are already providing transitional housing have the experience, they have the expertise, and they're able to do things better than we can do trying to start doing them ourselves as the city. They also are able to provide the feedback on where to guide that spending. So we collected all of that feedback. We took a look at all the projects, and then we also looked at what were the areas where we can get some external matching funds. And most all of the major projects that we allocated our ARPA money from, we got matching funds from the state or other entities, so we were able to make our money go further. So that would be the decision process I would go through if we got the $10 million. But just today, without being able to go through that process again, I would again, I think, identify housing as that top priority, because while we were able to make record investments with ARPA, there's certainly still room to make a lot more progress. And so looking at something like Restore SGF and the Springfield Community Land Trust, where we could turn that $10 million into permanent, affordable housing that is something that people can buy, so we keep that homeownership dream alive, is what I would look at.
Matt, this concludes our interview. Thank you very much for taking time to talk with us. I've been speaking with Matt Simpson, who is a candidate for Springfield City Council Zone 4. This concludes our interviews with the candidates for Springfield City Council Zone 4. I am Mary Ann Wood with Missouri State University Office of Public Affairs. Thank you for joining us.
The election is Tuesday, April the 8th. We hope you continue to research the candidates to see how their values and positions align with yours. On April 8th, exercise your right to vote. If you have questions about where or how to vote or the status of your voter registration, please contact your county clerk's office. This program was pre-recorded and will be posted on Coalition websites and social media platforms after today's broadcast. No part of the audio or video may be reproduced or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic or mechanical, without the written permission of the copyright holder, League of Women Voters of Southwest Missouri.